High Commander Praxis Dunmar stood at the observation deck of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory, his four arms clasped behind his back in what his species considered the ultimate pose of superiority. The gleaming hull of his vessel, forged from metals unknown to most civilizations, reflected the light of yet another star system about to fall under Zolarian control. "How many worlds does this make now, Information Officer?" Dunmar asked, not bothering to turn around. His voice carried the particular resonance that all Zolarians possessed, a sound that made lesser species feel like they were being addressed by the universe itself. Information Officer Laxi Vorn consulted her neural interface. "This will be conquest number 3742, High Commander." A most auspicious number in the Imperial calculation. "Auspicious?" Dunmar snorted, finally turning to face his subordinate. "It's merely inevitable. The Zolarian Empire doesn't rely on superstition or fortune. We rely on the fact that we are simply better." He gestured toward the planet below with one of his upper limbs. "Look at them. Another primitive world that will soon learn their place in the grand scheme of things. Under us, always under us." The information officer nodded, her cranial ridges pulsing with the blue light of deference. "Of course, High Commander. The natural order of the galaxy." Dunmar moved to his command chair, a marvel of engineering that adjusted perfectly to his physiology. The chair itself was worth more than most planets' entire economic output. "The ancestors designed us to rule, Vorn. Our neural capacity is 3 times that of the next most intelligent species we've encountered. Our technology is built on principles most races can't even comprehend. We've mastered faster-than-light travel while some of these pathetic creatures are still discovering nuclear fission. Most enlightened observation, High Commander." "Don't patronize me, Vorn. I get enough of that from the Imperial Council." Dunmar waved one of his lower arms dismissively. "What's the status on that newly discovered system? The one with the blue-green world and the bipedal mammals?" Officer Vorn's cranial ridges flickered with surprise. "You mean Sol 3, High Commander? The humans? Is that what they call themselves? Humans? Such a dull name. No wonder they're so unremarkable. Initial scans indicate they've achieved rudimentary space travel, but nothing beyond their own moon. They've sent primitive probes to neighboring planets. Their technological development is well amusing at best." Dunmar laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. "And yet I hear military advisor Krell finds them interesting. What nonsense has he been spouting now?" Advisor Krell mentioned something about their adaptive capabilities and unusual problem-solving methods. "But his fascination with lesser species is well known, High Commander. Krell always did have a soft spot for the primitives. Remember how he advised caution with the Centauri? And look how easily they fell." Dunmar's upper right hand made a crushing motion. "These humans will be no different from other species to serve the glory of our empire." The observation deck illuminated as the Eternal Glory's weapon systems automatically targeted and obliterated a small defense satellite from the planet below. Dunmar didn't even blink at the flash. "Schedule an exploratory mission to this Sol system. Low priority, of course. No need to rush when dealing with such an undeveloped species. We'll get to them when we get to them." "Yes, High Commander." "After our current conquest?" "Obviously." Dunmar rolled all 4 of his eyes simultaneously. "One inferior species at a time, Vorn. That's how we've built the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. Methodical, precise, inevitable." Little did the High Commander know that inevitable was a word the universe particularly enjoyed proving wrong, especially when it came to a certain planet called Earth. 3 Zolarian cycles later, roughly equivalent to 14 Earth months, High Commander Dunmar found himself facing the representatives of humanity for the first time. The meeting took place aboard the Eternal Glory because of course it did. Zolarians never stooped to visiting the homeworlds of lesser species for initial diplomatic contact. That would imply equality, and equality was a concept the Zolarian Empire had scientifically disproven millennia ago. "Welcome aboard the flagship of the glorious Zolarian Empire," Dunmar announced, not bothering to rise from his command chair as the human delegation was escorted onto the bridge. "I trust our atmospheric adjustments are adequate for your primitive respiratory systems." The lead human, a female with short black hair who had introduced herself as Ambassador Tanya Jackson, smiled politely. "The atmosphere is perfectly comfortable, High Commander. We appreciate your hospitality." Dunmar flicked his upper left hand in what passed for Zolarian amusement. "Hospitality is unnecessary between us, Ambassador. This is merely pragmatic. Dead diplomats make for tedious paperwork." Behind him, military advisor Krell shifted uncomfortably. The human seemed either oblivious to the insult or remarkably composed. "Interesting. Allow me to introduce our Chief Science Officer, Dr. Marcus Powell, and General Amara Okafor, representing Earth's United Defense Forces," Ambassador Jackson said, gesturing to her companions. Dunmar barely glanced at them. Yes, your titles mean little here. I've reviewed your species' technological capabilities. Your most advanced computers would be considered children's toys in our empire. Your fastest vessels cannot even achieve 1% of our standard cruising speed. And your weapons?" He let out that crystal-breaking laugh. "Well, let's just say we've seen more threatening technology from pre-industrial civilizations." Dr. Powell cleared his throat. "With respect, High Commander, we're eager to learn from advanced civilizations like yours. We've brought schematics of some of our recent innovations, hoping you might provide feedback on possible improvements." "How adorably earnest," Information Officer Vorn whispered to her colleague, just loud enough for the humans to hear. Dunmar gestured lazily, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the bridge, showing Earth's most advanced spacecraft, weapons systems, and communication technology. The Zolarian officers made no attempt to hide their amused expressions as they swiped through the images. "This is your planetary defense system," Sub-Commander Jax Brantok snickered, pointing at Earth's orbital platforms. "These wouldn't withstand 10 seconds against even our scout vessels." General Okafor smiled thinly. "We're still developing our capabilities, Sub-Commander." "For 300 years, according to our intelligence," Dunmar replied. "And yet you've made such minimal progress. One wonders what you've been doing with your time." Ambassador Jackson maintained her diplomatic composure. "Our development has taken different paths than yours, High Commander. We've focused on sustainable growth and social stability." "Ah, yes, your endless internal conflicts," Dunmar nodded sagely. "We've observed your what-do-you-call-them? Wars? Such an inefficient way to establish dominance. In the Zolarian Empire, resistance was eliminated generations ago. Total compliance is simply more productive." What Dunmar failed to notice was the subtle exchange of glances between the human delegates, the almost imperceptible nod from General Okafor to Dr. Powell, who casually adjusted his watch, sending an encrypted signal back to Earth. After the formal meeting concluded, Dunmar summoned his senior staff to the strategic planning chamber. The room's walls displayed real-time data from across the galaxy, each point of light representing a Zolarian conquest or monitoring station. "Well, your assessments?" Dunmar demanded. Military advisor Krell spoke first, his tone cautious. "They seem remarkably calm for a species facing a clearly superior civilization, High Commander. Perhaps we should." "They're calm because they're resigned to their fate," interrupted Brantok. "Their technology is laughable. Did you see their propulsion systems? Chemical rockets. Like watching infants play with explosives." Dunmar tapped his fingers on the crystalline table. "Their resources are considerable, though. The planetary surveys confirm abundant rare minerals, water, and biological diversity in their population. Nearly 8 billion, Officer Vorn supplied, 30 specimens physically. Our xenobiologists suggest they have impressive endurance and adaptability to different environments. Perfect for labor forces then, Dunmar concluded. Their intellectual capabilities are clearly limited, but their physical form seems adequate for resource extraction on Class 4 planets. We'll begin integration protocols immediately." Krell frowned, his cranial ridges pulsing with concern. "High Commander, if I may suggest a more gradual approach? There was something in their demeanor that seems. Your concern is noted and dismissed, Advisor Krell. Dunmar rose from his seat, towering over his subordinates. Prepare the standard planetary acquisition template. We'll present our terms to these humans tomorrow. They'll be grateful for our guidance, as all lesser species eventually are. Back on Earth, General Okafor's transmission had reached the Global Defense Council. In an underground facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, engineers and military personnel worked frantically, making final adjustments to a vessel that, curiously, it had not been included in any of the schematics shared with the Zolarians. Its name, emblazoned on the midnight black hull in bold white letters, Defiance. "How much time do we have?" asked Fleet Admiral Elena Reyes, watching as technicians swarmed over the massive warship. General Okafor's face appeared on the main screen. "They're arrogant, overconfident, and completely dismissive of our capabilities. Exactly as we hoped. I'd say we have 48 hours before they deliver their generous offer of servitude." "Will it be enough time?" the Admiral asked. A slow smile spread across Okafor's face. "They have no idea what's coming. Not a single clue." The grand negotiation hall of the Eternal Glory had been specially decorated for the occasion. Not that much decoration was needed. The hall itself was a marvel of Zolarian engineering, with walls that shifted colors based on the emotional frequencies in the room. Currently, they glowed with the smug purple gold that indicated supreme Zolarian confidence. Floating pedestals displayed holographic recreations of famous Zolarian conquests throughout history. A particularly prominent display showed the subjugation of the Arcturian Republic, once thought to be militarily formidable until the Zolarians reduced their capital to cosmic dust in under 3 hours. The message was clear, resistance was pointless. High Commander Dunmar stood at the elevated platform, looking down both literally and figuratively at the human delegation. This time, more Earth representatives had been permitted to attend, including several military officers and resource management specialists. All the better to witness their own surrender, Dunmar thought. "People of Earth," Dunmar began, his voice amplified to unnecessarily dramatic levels. "After careful consideration of your civilization's current development and potential, the glorious Zolarian Empire has prepared a generous incorporation proposal." With a theatrical gesture, he activated the central holographic projector. A three-dimensional model of Earth appeared, with pulsing red areas covering roughly 60% of the surface. These designated zones will be transferred to direct Zolarian control for resource extraction. At your population centers, the remaining areas flashed blue will remain under local governance, supervised, of course, by Zolarian administrators. Ambassador Jackson's face remained impressively neutral. "And what becomes of our people, High Commander?" "Ah, an excellent question. 30% of your working-age population will be selected for labor assignments throughout the Empire. A tremendous opportunity. You'll get to see the galaxy. Well, the mines and processing facilities of the galaxy, at least." Dunmar's upper arms spread in what the Zolarians considered a magnanimous gesture. "The remaining population will serve local needs and continue your charming cultural practices, under appropriate oversight." "And if we decline this generous offer?" General Okafor asked quietly. Sub-Commander Brantok let out a barking laugh. "The same option all species receive." Witness. He tapped a control, and the Earth hologram was suddenly engulfed in simulated fire, crumbling into fragments. A murmur went through the human delegation. "We'll need time to present these terms to our global leadership," Ambassador Jackson said after a moment. "This is quite comprehensive." Of course, Dunmar said with false benevolence. "We are not unreasonable. You have 48 of your Earth hours to prepare your civilization for a new era of Zolarian guidance. We look forward to your affirmative response." After the humans were escorted back to their transport vessel, the Zolarian command staff remained in the hall, already celebrating another bloodless conquest. "Did you see their faces when Brantok showed the planetary destruction simulation?" Officer Vorn laughed. "I thought the female general might faint." "They're showing remarkable restraint," Krell noted, still the voice of caution. Most species respond with either immediate capitulation or futile threats at this stage. Dunmar dismissed the concern with a wave. They're in shock, Krell, processing the inevitable. By tomorrow, they'll be drafting surrender documents and preparing to welcome our extraction teams. What about these intelligence reports? Krell persisted, bringing up a data stream on his personal console. There are unusual energy signatures being detected from their lunar dark side, and communication patterns suggest. More primitive weapons tests, no doubt, Brantok interrupted. Let them play with their toys while they can. Back on the lunar dark side, concealed from Zolarian observation by advanced jamming technology, the warship Defiance underwent its final preparations. Unlike the conventional Earth vessels the Zolarians had so easily dismissed, this ship bore little resemblance to traditional human spacecraft. Gravitational displacement drive at 97% capacity, reported Chief Engineer Patel. Shield harmonics calibrated to Zolarian scanning frequencies. Admiral Reyes moved through the ship's command center, checking each station personally. Weapons status? Fusion Cascade torpedoes armed and ready. Adaptive penetration beams charged. The boarding teams are running final drills now. At the tactical station, a junior officer looked up nervously. Admiral, that last communication burst from the Eternal Glory contained detailed scans of our ship. They've spotted us. Admiral Reyes smiled. Good. Let them see a little. Just enough to make them curious, not enough to make them worried. Are the decoy signatures operational? Yes, Admiral. As far as their scans can tell, we're just another clumsy human attempt at building a warship. The energy readings suggest we're barely capable of reaching Mars. Perfect. The Admiral turned to the main viewport, where the massive Zolarian flagship was visible as a distant, ominous shape against Earth's blue backdrop. Let them underestimate us one more day. It'll be the last mistake their empire ever makes. Exactly 47 Earth hours after delivering their ultimatum, the Zolarians received an incoming transmission from Earth. High Commander Dunmar arranged for the message to be displayed on the main bridge, with his entire senior staff present to witness what he confidently expected to be humanity's surrender speech. Open the channel, Vorn. Let's see how graciously these humans can accept their new reality, Dunmar said, settling comfortably into his command chair. The massive view screen flickered to life, showing not the diplomatic chamber they expected, but what appeared to be a military command center. Ambassador Jackson stood front and center, but gone was her conciliatory demeanor. Beside her, General Okafor wore a formal military uniform adorned with medals and insignia that the Zolarians had never seen during previous encounters. High Commander Dunmar, Jackson began, her voice crisp and formal. On behalf of the United Earth Government, I am authorized to respond to your proposal. Dunmar gestured magnanimously. We accept your. We decline, Jackson interrupted, causing several Zolarian officers to gasp at the breach of protocol. No lesser species had ever dared to cut off a high commander mid-sentence. Dunmar blinked all four eyes in rapid succession. I believe there may be a translation error. You cannot possibly be declining. There is no error, High Commander. General Okafor stepped forward. Earth will not surrender its resources or its people. We reject your terms completely. A stunned silence fell over the Zolarian bridge, quickly followed by uproarious laughter from Sub-Commander Brantok. They're rejecting our terms. That's hilarious. Do they think this is a negotiation? Dunmar raised a hand for silence, his amusement quickly giving way to irritation. Ambassador Jackson, perhaps you fail to understand the situation. This is not an offer you can simply decline. This is the natural order of things. Your species will serve the Empire, whether voluntarily or through force. Jackson smiled, not the nervous smile of previous meetings, but something altogether different, something unsettling. We understand perfectly, High Commander. We simply disagree with your assessment of the natural order. You have 20 minutes to reconsider, Dunmar said coldly. After that, we begin standard subjugation protocols. We'll be ready, General Okafor replied, and the transmission cut. The military advisor Krell approached the command chair cautiously. "High Commander, this is unusual. Most species at least attempt to negotiate better terms." "Deploy the subjugation fleet," Dunmar snapped. "Two destroyer groups should be more than sufficient for a species of this development level." Within minutes, 12 Zolarian destroyers detached from the main fleet and moved into attack formation. Each vessel was a marvel of Imperial engineering, sleek, predatory shapes with weapons capable of reducing cities to ash in seconds. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, following battle formations that had been refined through thousands of conquests. From the command bridge, Dunmar watched with practiced boredom. Begin with their orbital defense platforms. Then target their largest military installations. In the standard intimidation package. "Yes, High Commander," Brantok acknowledged, relaying the orders. Destroyers report weapons hot and targets acquired. Commencing attack in 3, 2, 1. The lead Zolarian destroyers fired, their energy weapons lancing toward Earth's pathetic orbital defenses. But instead of the expected explosions, something bizarre happened. The energy beams seemed to hit nothing but empty space. "What's happening?" Dunmar demanded. "Where are their defense platforms?" Officer Vorn frantically checked her sensors. They're not there, Commander. The orbital signatures we've been tracking, they're just decoys. Holographic projections with minimal mass." "That's impossible," Brantok sputtered. "Their technology isn't capable of." His statement was cut short as alarms blared across the bridge. On the tactical display, 3 Zolarian destroyers suddenly flashed red. Contact. Multiple unknown vessels decloak, attacking from behind. The tactical officer's voice rose in pitch. "They're using some kind of pulse weapons we'd never seen before." Dunmar stood abruptly, his forearms tensed in shock. "Show me." The view screen shifted to show a chaotic scene. Where the carefully arranged Zolarian attack formation had been, there was now disorder. 5 small, nimble human vessels had somehow appeared in the midst of the Zolarian formation. They moved in completely unpredictable patterns, firing weapons that seemed to bypass Zolarian shields entirely. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" Dunmar roared. Krell was studying the readings with obvious alarm. "They're using our own shield frequencies against us. Somehow they've analyzed our defensive harmonics and calibrated their weapons to pass right through." As they watched in disbelief, one of the Zolarian destroyers exploded spectacularly, then another. The remaining destroyers attempted to regroup, but the human vessels refused to engage in proper formation combat. They darted in and out, striking from unexpected angles, then disappearing again. "This is not how space combat works." Brantok shouted in frustration. "They're not following any recognized battle doctrine." On the screen, a larger human vessel suddenly appeared from behind Earth's moon. Unlike the decoy ships the Zolarians had been shown earlier, this one was sleek, black, and moved with startling speed. The name Defiance was clearly visible on its hull as it accelerated toward the Zolarian fleet. "High Commander," Vorn's voice shook slightly. "That vessel is generating power readings approaching our own capabilities. How did they hide this technology from us?" Dunmar couldn't answer. For the first time in his illustrious career, he was witnessing something unprecedented, a Zolarian subjugation fleet in retreat. The surviving destroyers were breaking formation, attempting to regroup behind the protection of the main fleet. "Recall the destroyers," Dunmar finally ordered. "Full defensive posture. And someone tell me how a primitive species just destroyed 4 of our most advanced warships." The bridge erupted into frantic activity as Zolarian officers struggled to make sense of what they were witnessing. The military doctrine that had served them for millennia suddenly seemed useless against an enemy that refused to fight according to the established rules of engagement. "They're not engaging us directly," Krell observed, a note of reluctant admiration in his voice. "They're using guerrilla tactics in space combat. No one has ever attempted such a thing." Because it's suicidal, Brantok insisted. It's uncivilized. As the surviving Zolarian destroyers limped back to the safety of the main fleet, a final message came through from Earth. General Okafor's face filled the screen, her expression calm but resolute. "Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss more equitable terms, High Commander," she said. "We'll give you 48 hours to prepare your response." The transmission ended, leaving the Zolarian command bridge in stunned silence. The War Council aboard the Eternal Glory had never experienced such chaos. High-ranking Zolarian officers shouted over one another, cranial ridges flashing anxious colors as tactical displays showed yet another formation of their ships being scattered by human vessels that refused to behave predictably. "How are they anticipating our movements?" Sub-Commander Brantok slammed all four fists onto the tactical table. "We're using battle algorithms refined over 12 centuries of warfare." "That's precisely the problem," military advisor Krell said quietly, causing the room to fall silent. "They've figured out our algorithms. We're predictable." High Commander Dunmar paced the chamber, his usually immaculate uniform showing signs of neglect after 3 consecutive sleep cycles without rest. "Impossible. Our military doctrine is mathematically perfect. The humans simply got lucky with their initial ambush. With respect, High Commander, this is their 7th successful engagement in 2 days." Krell brought up a holographic display showing the Defiance performing a maneuver that violated several laws of conventional space combat. "They're not fighting the way anyone has ever fought before," Information Officer Vorn, who had been analyzing intercepted human communications, looked up from her console. "I've found something disturbing in their transmissions. They're using a tactical approach they call asymmetric warfare. They've actually developed an entire doctrine around being the technologically inferior force." "That makes no sense," Brantok scoffed. "Why develop tactics for inferiority instead of just advancing your technology?" "Because they've been fighting themselves for most of their history," Krell realized, eyes widening. "Their historical records show continuous warfare between different human factions with varying technology levels. The weaker sides had to develop unconventional approaches just to survive." On the main screen, they watched as the Defiance suddenly cut its engines mid-battle, appearing disabled. 3 Zolarian cruisers moved in for the kill, following standard protocol for engaging a crippled enemy vessel. It was a trap. The moment the Zolarian ships aligned in the textbook capture formation, the Defiance unleashed a new weapon, some kind of gravitational pulse that pulled the 3 cruisers into each other, causing catastrophic damage as their hulls collided. "That's not supposed to be possible." Brantok was practically shrieking now. "And they're breaking the rules of engagement." "They don't know the rules," Krell said with growing respect. "Or rather, they don't care about them. Look at how they're fighting. They're adapting to each situation individually, rather than following standardized responses." Dunmar turned to his science officer, a spindly Zolarian named Traz Volmar, who had remained silent throughout the crisis. "Tell me you found a weakness in their flagship at least." Volmar hesitated. "That's the other problem, High Commander. The Defiance, it appears to be partially built using our own technology." A stunned silence fell over the War Council. "Explain," Dunmar demanded. "The energy signatures, the shield modulation, they're derivative of Zolarian designs, but they've been modified, improved upon in ways we never considered." Volmar brought up comparative schematics. "They must have recovered fragments from our scout vessels or outposts and reverse-engineered them. They scavenged our scraps and turned them against us." Dunmar couldn't hide his disbelief. "More than that," Volmar continued. "They identified weaknesses in our designs that we never addressed because, well, no species has ever exploited them before. And for instance, the oscillation variance in our shield generators that we consider an acceptable tolerance. They've created weapons specifically calibrated to that exact frequency gap." On the tactical display, another Zolarian formation fell into disarray as human ships executed what appeared to be a completely random attack pattern. Except it wasn't random at all, they were targeting specific vulnerabilities in the Zolarian fleet with surgical precision. "High Commander," Vorn reported, her voice shaking. "The southwestern quadrant has completely collapsed. Our ships they're retreating without orders." Dunmar watched the tactical display in horror as the perfect, beautiful formations that had conquered thousands of worlds dissolved into chaos. Each Zolarian ship captain, trained to respond to specific scenarios in specific ways, found themselves facing situations their training never covered. Some froze in indecision. Others took contradictory actions, interfering with their own fleet members. "This can't be happening," Dunmar whispered. "We are the Zolarian Empire. We don't lose battles to primitive species who barely understand faster than light travel." "And yet," Krell said softly, "here we are." In the center of the War Council chamber, a new hologram appeared, a direct transmission from the Defiance. Admiral Reyes stood on her bridge, surrounded by her crew, all wearing expressions of grim determination. "High Commander Dunmar," she said, "your empire has never faced humans before. Perhaps now you understand why that was a mistake. They're targeting the command ships exclusively." Tactical Officer Zendrax shouted as alarms blared across the Eternal Glory's bridge, bypassing our escort vessels completely. High Commander Dunmar gripped the arms of his command chair, watching in horror as the main view screen showed 3 human vessels, including the now infamous Defiance, cutting through his fleet's defensive screen like it wasn't even there. The Zolarian battle formation, a perfect geometric arrangement honed through millennia of victorious campaigns, each was being ignored entirely as the human ships headed straight for the command vessels. "How are they identifying our command structure?" Dunmar demanded. "Our chain of command is encrypted at the highest level." The military advisor Krell, who had been analyzing the battle data, looked up with dawning comprehension. "They studied our fleet movements during the first engagements. They noticed that all tactical decisions propagate from specific vessels. They don't need to decrypt our communications, they simply observed which ships the others respond to." That's absurdly simple," Information Officer Vorn stammered. "Yes," Krell agreed grimly. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the one we're too advanced to consider." The deck shuddered violently as the Eternal Glory took a direct hit. Emergency systems wailed as power fluctuated throughout the massive flagship. "Direct hit to our primary communication array," Zendrax reported. "We've lost contact with the Eastern Battle Group." On the tactical display, the results were immediate and catastrophic. Without direct command inputs from the flagship, the Eastern Battle Group fell into disarray. Some captains attempted to maintain formation while others broke away to engage individual human vessels. The perfect synchronization that made the Zolarian fleet invincible was collapsing in real time. "They've identified our hierarchical weakness," Krell said quietly to Dunmar. "Our entire military doctrine is built around perfect central command. Without it, we're just individual ships," Dunmar finished, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Another explosion rocked the flagship as the Defiance made a direct attack run. Through the view screen, Dunmar could see the human vessel executing maneuvers that Zolarian ships couldn't possibly match: tight turns, unpredictable acceleration patterns, and combat approaches that no simulator would ever suggest because they appeared suicidal until the moment they succeeded. "Secondary command vessels Righteous Thunder and Imperial will have gone dark," Vorn reported, her voice shaking. "The fleet captains are requesting new command protocols." "Tell them to fall back to formation Delta 7, Dunmar ordered. "We can't, sir. Communication relays are offline. Each captain can only hear ships in their immediate vicinity." The implications hit the bridge crew like a wave of cold water. The Zolarian fleet had never trained for autonomous operations. Every captain relied on a perfect chain of command flowing from the flagship down. Without it, they were like limbs disconnected from a central nervous system. Sub-Commander Brantok, who had been coordinating the defense from an auxiliary command post, burst onto the bridge, his uniform singed and his cranial ridges pulsing with panic. "The humans have deployed some kind of information weapon," he gasped. They're broadcasting tactical suggestions directly to our ship captains. Contradictory orders. Some of our vessels are firing on each other. How is that possible? Dunmar roared. Our communication systems are genetically keyed to Zolarian operators. They're not hacking our systems, Krell realized. They're using basic frequencies and our own authentication protocols. They must have captured them during the early skirmishes. The ship rocked again as another human attack run scored a direct hit. Emergency lighting flickered as primary systems began to fail across the flagship. Engineering reports cascade failures in all command systems, Warren said, her voice barely audible over the alarms. We're losing control of the fleet, High Commander. Dunmar stood in the center of his burning bridge, watching as his perfect military machine, the invincible force that had subjugated thousands of worlds, came apart around him. On the few displays still functioning, he could see Zolarian vessels fleeing in all directions, and their captains making individual decisions for perhaps the first time in their careers. This can't be happening, he whispered. We're gods to them. They're barely out of their planetary cradle. How could they possibly? They don't think like we do, Krell said simply. And that's the one advantage we never considered. One Zolarian cycle later, High Commander Praxis Dunmar found himself in a position he had never imagined possible, sitting across from humans as equals at a peace negotiation. The conference took place not on the damaged Eternal Glory, but aboard the Defiance, a symbolic gesture that wasn't lost on any of the Zolarians present. Let me ensure I understand these terms correctly, Dunmar said, his voice lacking its former imperious tone. You're not demanding territorial concessions? No reparations? No Zolarian servitude? Ambassador Jackson nodded. That's correct, High Commander. Earth doesn't seek to conquer or subjugate. We simply want recognition as an independent, sovereign species with full rights under galactic law. Dunmar exchanged bewildered glances with the remnants of his command staff. After the devastating defeat of the Zolarian fleet, the first military loss in over 2,000 cycles, they had expected draconian peace terms. Instead, the humans seemed almost reasonable. You could demand much more, Dunmar said, unable to comprehend this approach. You've defeated our primary battle fleet. Our defenses are compromised. General Okafor smiled slightly. Taking your territory would require occupying it. Demanding your resources would require administering extraction. Enslaving your people would require constant oversight. All of that sounds exhausting and, frankly, pointless. Not to mention morally repugnant, Admiral Reyes added. We aren't interested in becoming the next empire. We just want to make sure there isn't one. As the terms were finalized, mutual recognition, non-aggression pacts, and open diplomatic channels, subspace transmissions were already racing across the galaxy. News of the Zolarian defeat spread rapidly through their subject worlds. Reports of uprisings came in from 3 different sectors before the peace treaty was even signed. The Centauri are demanding representation, Information Officer Vorn whispered to Dunmar, checking her communications panel. And the Arcturus Coalition is forming some kind of autonomous government. High Commander, the Empire is its unraveling. Dunmar nodded slowly, the full weight of what had happened finally settling on him. One species, one single species that they had dismissed as primitive, had brought down what had seemed an eternal empire. After the humans departed to give the Zolarian delegation time to confer, military advisor Krell approached Dunmar, who stood staring out a viewport at the blue-green planet that had changed everything. You know what our greatest mistake was? Dunmar asked quietly. We underestimated them, Krell replied. No. Dunmar shook his head. We overestimated ourselves. We called ourselves gods, Krell. We believed our own mythology so completely that we couldn't recognize the threat until it was too late. What do you think will happen now? Dunmar watched as a small human shuttle departed the Defiance, heading back to Earth. Such a fragile-looking craft, carrying such resilient beings. Everything changes, he said simply. The Empire as we knew it is finished. But perhaps whatever comes next might be better. Better than being gods. Krell asked with a hint of his old dry humor. Dunmar turned from the viewport. Gods don't learn, Krell. Gods don't adapt. Gods don't evolve. Perhaps it's time we tried being mortal for a change. As the eternal glory limped away from Earth orbit, beginning the long journey back to Zolarian space, emergency sessions of the Imperial Council were already being convened. Across 1,000 worlds, species that had lived under Zolarian dominion for generations looked to the stars with new hope. And on countless Zolarian communication channels, the same question echoed: how could a species so young, so recently emerged from their planetary cradle, so seemingly primitive, have accomplished what no other civilization had managed in millennia? The answer was both simple and profound. Humans had never believed they were gods. They had always known they were fallible, mortal, limited, and that understanding had made them limitless. The Zolarian Empire had ruled the galaxy through perfect order. Humanity had saved it through beautiful chaos,